folks. We're back. Short Film Saturday, the day you're always looking for at the end of the week. Hi, everyone. My name is 𝗦𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 And this is Short Film Saturdays for the first timers who are coming in from all over the world. We usually have people from all over the world, so welcome to you. And today is in partnership with Third Horizon Film Festival and with Caribbean Beat magazine, who you'll meet in just a second. So first, let me tell you a little bit about Soleil for those of you who aren't as familiar. Our mission is to achieve a more equitable and representative global film and TV landscape. We're a media company based in Brooklyn, New York, and our focus is on the global diasporas of Asia, Africa, Latin America, the Caribbean, and the Middle East, with goals of elevating untold cultures, untold stories from these cultures, and forming closer community bonds across borders. And one of the most important things that we do is really aim to provide opportunities and resources for creators in our communities to produce premium world-class content and to showcase that content. So for us, it's really important to lift up underrepresented voices from these regions that are not often seen or authentically represented or well understood in the global mainstream media. And we think there's no better way to do this than short films. Short Film Saturday was born actually through our Soleil Spotlight podcast, where we would profile filmmakers at different stages in their career, industry trailblazers as well. And some of them will talk about either their early work or their first film, which was a short film. And everybody will be like, well, where can we see the films? So we came up with the idea to show the films. And this is how Short Film Saturdays was born. So our shorts are often, ways for us to show the form of artistic expression that filmmakers don't always get to do when they don't have the resources, right? They try to really produce their rawest, purest form of artistic expression. And we really feel that this is a really good forum for people to see talent early in their careers. So we are really excited because since launching Short Film Saturdays in the late summer of 2021, we featured 41 films from 32 filmmakers in 20 countries to date. We're really proud of this. And so Maya and Mandy are our 33rd and 34th filmmakers, so we're getting up there. And today is the Caribbean themed Short Film Saturday that we do bi-monthly with Third Horizon Film Festival. So I have here with me my co-host 𝗖𝗢𝗏𝗡, who will introduce himself and tell us a little bit about Third Horizon.
Thank you so much, Mika, and welcome to everyone that has joined us today for a beautiful Short Film Saturday session. To tell you a little bit about Third Horizon is an award-winning filmmaking collective dedicated to developing, producing, exhibiting, and distributing film and other art forms that give voice to stories of the Caribbean and its diaspora. So we're a mighty little collective that is doing practically everything to help develop the film world that we're all living in. We stage the annual Third Horizon Film Festival in Miami, which celebrates the exciting new wave of cinema and creativity emerging from our fellow filmmakers across the Caribbean and the diaspora. We're pretty excited to be back this year, not just in person. Of course, we've learned so much from COVID, so we're making it a hybrid festival for people that can still Zoom in and join with us wherever they may be if they can't make it to Miami. Because of all of the work that we've been doing, we've been named one of the 25 coolest film festivals in the world, both in 2019 and 2021 by Movie Maker magazine. And we're pretty happy to be creating platforms for our filmmakers, for our community, wherever we can to best help them to really help spaces like Soleil as well to really develop and spread the word on Caribbean filmmaking. So back over to you, Mika. Just looking forward to watching these films again.
And I always like to shout out Third Horizon because it's my favorite festival. I went to Third Horizon the first time, I think it was before the pandemic, and I was like, wow, we have a parade after a screening. Like that was just, I mean, vibes, right? So it was really exciting. And we've always had a great relationship and we're really happy to be doing this today. So I'll just really quickly mention our other partner for this screening, which is 𝗑𝗩𝗢𝗞𝗐 magazine. For those of you who aren't familiar, 𝗑𝗩𝗢𝗞𝗐 is very near and dear to the hearts of people in the Caribbean as the official in-flight magazine of Caribbean Airlines, which is the regional airline for the Caribbean. It was published by MEP Limited since 1992 and is the diaspora's leading culture and travel magazine, marking its 30th anniversary in March 2022. It's the region's most widely distributed magazine as well, committed to the highest editorial and production standards, and to getting behind the familiar stereotypes to show how rich Caribbean life really is, its people, festivals, arts, sports, and so much more. And I think that's a really great segue to the two films you're about to see and the two filmmakers that you're about to meet. Maya Cozier from Trinidad and Tobago and Mandy Marcus from Guyana. Two really talented filmmakers who have been really pushing boundaries over the last 2 years for the region. But the films have been a really rich exploration and depiction of Caribbean life, which we're excited to show you. So I'll hand it off to both of them. First to Mandy to introduce your film, and then to Maya, and then I'll read your bios and we'll get into the screening.
Great, thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I'm Mandy Marcus. I'm the writer-director of 𝗑𝗩𝗢𝗔𝗬𝗦. It's a film I made in Brooklyn and New Jersey a couple years ago with my family, friends, and collaborators. So really excited that y'all are here to see it. And I hope you enjoy it. Passing it on to Maya.
Hi, everybody. I'm Maya Cozier, the writer and director of 𝗔𝗪𝗔𝗪𝗔𝗡. The short film actually got adapted into a feature-length film a year later. So I'm really excited to kind of share the short version and, you know, kind of share with everybody our first attempt at making this film.
Yeah. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the work of these two women, I want to read their bios before we start playing their films. And the first film that you'll see is 𝗔𝗪𝗪𝗔𝗡 by Maya Cozier. After graduating from the School of Visual Arts in New York with a degree in film, Maya returned to her home country and my home country, Trinidad and Tobago, to write and direct her first feature film, 𝗔𝗪𝗪𝗔𝗡. The 𝗔𝗪𝗪𝗔𝗡 script won the Take One Film Feature Grant and premiered at the 2020 Tribeca Film Festival. Maya's previous short films have shown at festivals internationally, winning awards at Curacao International Film Festival and the TNT Trinidad and Tobago Film Festival. Her work often explores the relationship between intimacy and isolation. And then the second film that you're going to see is by Mandy Marcus, called 𝗑𝗩𝗢𝗢𝗔, as she mentioned. And Mandy is Guyanese American, a writer and director based in Brooklyn, New York. She holds a BA in Media Studies from Pomona College, studied experimental film at the University of Melbourne, and received her MFA in directing from Brooklyn College's Fierstein Graduate School of Cinema. Prior to filmmaking, Mandy worked as a music promoter, label manager, and traveling recruiter. In the summer of 2020, she placed as a semi-finalist in the Shondaland Series Fest Women Directing Fellowship. Her latest short, 𝗑𝗩𝗢𝗢𝗔𝗡, which you'll see, is a 2020 National Board of Review Student Grant winner and 2020 IFP the Gotham Student Showcase winner. So let's go. We're about to watch 𝗔𝗪𝗪𝗔𝗡 and 𝗑𝗩𝗢𝗢𝗔𝗡. Thank you, ladies. And thanks, everyone. Enjoy the show and we'll see you soon. Back for the Q&A. All right, so we're back, guys. And you guys were really entertaining. Just as entertaining as the films themselves. So this is going to be a really good Q&A. For those of you who joined us a little late, this is Short Film Saturdays with Soleil Space, Third Horizon, and 𝗑𝗩𝗢𝗢𝗞𝗐. And we're here with two Caribbean filmmakers, amazing, talented women, directors, Mandy Marcus and Maya Cozier. And you would have just seen 𝗔𝗪𝗏𝗘𝗥 and 𝗏𝗔𝗬𝗏𝗔𝗏𝗏, 2 short films that have been doing really well on the festival circuit and gotten great critical acclaim. So we're going to start jumping into the Q&A now. So the way this is going to work, for those of you who haven't been to a Short Film Saturdays before, we will ask each filmmaker questions in the order that their film was screened. And then we will open it up for you, the audience, to ask questions. And you could put your questions in the chat. Now, we can't always ask all of the questions just due to time constraints, but still put your questions in the chat because it's always great for the filmmakers to go back and see what the audience has asked. So we're really excited. And based on the conversation that was being had during the screening, I could tell that these questions might be pretty hilarious. So I'm jumping in now on 𝗔𝗪𝗏𝗘𝗥. All right, so Maya, you, I have to say, this is the second time I'm watching the short, and you always make me miss Carnival. And if I wasn't missing Carnival before, you always make me miss it even more just by watching this as a Trinidadian myself. So, for those of us inside the culture, of course, this all comes very naturally, right? But as you would have seen in the conversation, we have people from very different cultures that are looking at this and seeing this for the first time. They get to see a bit of dance culture in Trinidad. So could you explain to them what facets of Trinidadian music and dance culture they saw in 𝗔𝗪𝗏𝗘𝗥? What are they doing? Kind of contextualize this for them.
No, so Carnival is very important to us in Trinidad culturally. We have a huge carnival every year that people fly in from all over the world to participate in. And this film, so, we have the 2-day celebration, which is on the streets with costumes, but then leading up to that 2-day celebration, we have a lot of fetes, which is what we call a party, a massive party. And at those parties, a lot of the soca musicians have backup dancers. So some of the dancers that in this film have danced for one of our biggest soca stars, Machel Montano, for the carnival season. And so this short film is really about getting inside of the world of these backup dancers and kind of showing Carnival from their point of view.
Yeah, good job. That's not easy to do, to translate that. You could tell you had some practice. Good job, good job. Yeah, Fit?
Yeah, so usually, and well, for me, it's really more about the Caribbean context and trying to find the right faces or the right actors for the right roles that you're really trying to portray. Tell us a little bit about your process of working with your lead and really having her embody and just see that arc move from, because she's surrounded by all these powerful women that are in dancehall. And that's kind of like an empowering moment for her too. So tell us a little bit about that process of working with her.
Yeah, so, most of the actors have no experience with film. A lot of them are dancers. So they have experience performing at least, but, with film, we were kind of starting, fresh with everyone. And the concept of filming too is also fresh to her. So I think, for me, it was a very organic process working with her. We really developed like a friendship throughout the whole journey. I, did practices with her where I would sort of fake shoot and just get her comfortable and used to the idea of having a camera presence, because so many people sort of change the way they behave when they feel the presence of a camera. So that we tried as much as possible to just film and have the cameras close to her, even leading up to the real shoot days. So she just gets used to ignoring his presence and feeling comfortable in that way. Leading up to the feature, we spent a lot of time looking at movies together and just kind of hanging out outside of formal rehearsals. So it was really like fulfilling to kind of build this friendship outside of shooting. And that allowed her like entering entering into something that's so like unheard of and new and unfamiliar, it allowed her to just be more comfortable because she by the end of like that whole experience, she trusted me. And so we were sort of, it really like facilitated like our on-set days.
And Maya, can I ask how old she was at the time?
She for the feature, she was 21. And then in the short, I believe she's 20.
Ah,
yeah.
Okay. Oh, so it was just 1 year apart. That's great.
Yeah, yeah. We shot the feature pretty quickly right after, yeah.
Okay. All right. And speaking of dancing, so I actually was a dancer, not a soca dancer, a ballet dancer. So there were a lot of, nuances, I think, for people who experience dancing, and you were a dancer yourself, right? So tell us about how your experience as a dancer, how did that guide the writing of the story, and some of the things that you were able to implement on set that someone who hadn't had experience dancing would not have quite been able to infuse into that. Yeah.
I think my experience in dance really helped the process leading up to shooting. I was a dancer. I danced under 𝗦𝗪𝗔𝗬𝗦.
Okay.
And she really encouraged, her dance school was to encourage us to do as many styles as possible. So Heather was like one of the first Black women to attend Juilliard in her day, and she's trained in ballet, but when she returned to Trinidad, she made sure that her school had folk, limbo, we did hip hop, tap, so we did every style, and then that led to this hip hop dance group called Blackout, which would go on TV every week on Synergy, and I danced for Kess, and I remember traveling to different islands to back up dance. So this was all in my teenage years, and then I sort of stepped away from that world when I went to film school in New York. And so returning back to Trinidad to write this film, having been away from the world, it meant that I sort of had to kind of reacquaint myself with it. And so I started to do a lot of interviews with dancers who were still very much actively like dancing for gigs every week. And being a part of the world allowed me to have that access to them. So, like there were some people I used to dance with who I would reach out to and ask if they would just have like a conversation with me to talk about like their experiences backstage. And I don't think I would have had that access if they didn't know me or, they remember me from back then. So I think being a dancer like allowed me to kind of get this like unique access into the writing process. And then, like also like the responsiveness of the community too, to like show up and be extras and it helped in so many different ways.
Okay. Yeah. So at no point in time you had to jump in and show them how to do that split.
It's strange. Like I feel like, like
you don't have to demo this split for them, Maya.
I remember trying to take a dance class like 5 years later after not dancing at all. And I just like, I felt like I had 2 left feet and I almost felt like people in the class were laughing at me. And then I just didn't get the confidence to go back. Because it's just like, there's a point where you're doing it every day and it's like second nature. And suddenly you stop like learning choreography and that, like that part of you that just could pick up choreography really easily, like it kind of like goes away.
Like a language, like a language that you haven't spoken.
You're rusty, yeah. I mean, I'm sure if I stuck it through, but that like whole experience of trying to like pick it up again was just too intimidating. That I don't know if I could show anybody anything at this point.
I guess coming from
for Maya.
Go for it. No, go for it, Mandy, please, by all means.
Both in the feature and in the short, I was just really impressed with the shooting of the dance scene on stage, and just like the production value is so high and it looks so great. And I was just wondering how you worked with your cinematographer and choreographer to kind of plan those performances, how you would shoot those performances.
Yeah, so when the cinematographer and I attended as many dance rehearsals as we possibly could. I also went to all of the rehearsals with the choreographer. So by then I kind of knew like the blocking of the routines. I would know, okay, like how they're using levels, like when they're on the floor, when they're high up. So that kind of like allowed like us to plan like where the camera would focus. I always joke that my cinematographer is like my really good friend that I met when I was in art school. We still work together to this day, but he's from like Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so like there were like these funny moments where I would have to tell him, like this isn't ballet. So
right,
like bring the camera down because right now like they're whining. So we need to see that, like there are funny moments. You'd be like, oh, like they're doing like amazing stuff and he's like focusing on their like, somewhere else. So it was just kind of like interesting, but obviously like finding a way to really capture like the freedom of their movement, but like not making the camera like, but like kind of objectifying either, like it was kind of like this dance, like with the gaze too, of like how you can get the freedom of the movement with the camera and really show like what they were doing.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback off of that Mandy asked, the energy of the entire film, like both in the short and in the feature, has just like you've been able to beautifully maintain the energy of that camera. Like the camera becomes our character for us. I always chuckle when I'm comparing dealing with extras and audiences in the Caribbean and then like in the US. Tell us a little bit about that crisscross of that experience of how the dynamic of managing a bunch of extras that are also Trinis, that are also in a party vibe, that are like naturally going to just go crazy because that's what you're trying to capture. Tell us a little bit about that process.
Yeah, so to be honest, shooting in a short, luckily I got practice with shooting such a large scene with the short. So by the time the feature came around, it was still very overwhelming. I was anxious from the top of the day to the bottom. But by the time the feature came around, I kind of knew, okay, how this could possibly work. With the short, we were just like, well, we're bringing all these extras. We had like 100 people show up and we were like, let's figure it out. One thing though that really helped was having a producer. So my producer has a background in entertainment. She's a television host and she's great at like getting people to laugh and telling them what to do. And so I have to actually give her like most of the credit for us pulling off that party scene on a bigger budget level. Like, it would usually be the ADs or the second AD kind of rallying extras, but she kind of like took control, like took the mic, had everybody laughing. And I would just tell her, okay, like right now I need everybody to dance and be completely quiet because we need no noise. So if they're screaming, you have to scream in silence. And then she would like relay that to them. But it was sort of like, we had to keep multiple things in mind as we were getting coverage because not all shots we needed the music on. So that meant that sometimes the dancers had to do their choreography without the music. There were some shots that required, the audience to be really, really quiet, even though they looked like they were having a good time. And so that also meant that like the AD needed to know, like, from our wide shot all the way down to like every single shot on our shot list, she also needed to like know which ones were sort of MOS and which ones we needed like the party to just, be themselves. But it wasn't a situation for us to get that kind of coverage for like a large scene. It couldn't be as casual as like everybody come and have a good time and like just like drink and dance. Like we actually needed the extras to participate. We could have shot it that way, but I don't think we would have been able to get like as much intricate coverage if we didn't have them like be quiet now and really like participate. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. And so now the feature is out, right? And I think for a lot of people who don't understand filmmaking, that shorts are often, your first attempt, but the vision is a full feature, right? And the short is what you're able to do to get that proof of concept out. So what we see now of 𝗔𝗪𝗔, the feature, and I'll let you promote that at the end, to tell people where to go see it, right? Your original vision when you set out to make this short, is the feature now, do you feel like this was your fully realized vision? What elements really were you most excited to elaborate on for the feature?
Do I feel like the feature was the most realized vision of the short?
Yeah, so when you made the short, right? The vision that you had at the time for the feature, do you feel like you were able to realize that full vision and connect for us, like what elements of the short did you feel you were most excited to expand upon to get to the feature? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was the most realized. Sorry. I think it was the most realized vision based on so we won a micro budget grant from 𝗪𝗢 Festa when 𝗪𝗪 Festa was in Trinidad. And so that was what we used to fund the feature length film. And I think for like what we were working with, I do feel like it was the most realized version of the film. But obviously, like if I had like a real budget, like I could imagine this would be, you know, like the film that I'm imagining in my head is totally different. And
well,
I think
tell us some of the things that you feel like, oh man, you know, if I had a bigger budget, I would have done this instead, you know?
Yeah, I mean, so for example, like the beach, well, you all haven't seen the feature. There's a scene on the beach where, you know, they're on a music video shoot in the feature length film. And I had a couple extras that were crucial to the scene that just decided they didn't want to show up, because most, most of how we got this film done at that budget level was like sort of like crew just wanting to make their first feature, like, you know, it really was a tough budget. So we relied on a lot of favors to make it happen. And that meant that like we can guarantee we would have everything we needed for every scene. So it meant that I sort of had to approach each set day with an open mind and sort of allow the environment to inform me to just kind of have this like fluid, really adaptable approach to filmmaking, and just kind of like make the best out of what was in front of me. So when those extras didn't show up, it was a hot sunny day on the beach, and I remember like thinking, okay, I could just, you know, be like, this is really overwhelming, I don't know what to do. Or I could just take a few minutes, walk away and try to think of a new scene, or like write a new scene, you know, in my head, and then make that happen. And that's what I did. And I saw like, I everybody was there, the whole crew was there, just kind of looking at me in the hot sun. What we need wasn't there. And I just kind of walked away, thought, okay, like what would make sense for the whole script. And then I went back to my DP and I said, okay, this is what we're going to shoot. And I kind of explained what the scene would be. So it really like required that adaptability. I mean, of course, if I had a real budget, like we would have had everything we needed produced, and you know what I mean? So it was that approach that was definitely a limitation. But I think, the expansion of it, like, right. So the short is really like her initiation into this world. It's like her sort of being pulled into this and fascinated by it. It's like her first time, meeting the woman. It's kind of like the inciting incident in a way, you know, like she meets them and she's drawn into this world. And then the feature kind of like really tracks like, you know, her, like the sort of complications behind after that journey begins. And it kind of unpacks it a lot more, which we weren't really quite able to do in such a short space of time with the short. But I think what was important for us with the short was just to make sure that like we established the world visually, like the texture of the world, the colors, the look and feel of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and you did a really good job of that. Like I said, you made me miss Carnival and Fettin.
Yes.
Like it felt like you were right there and very authentic. All right, so we're switching now to cousins for a bit. So Mandy, well, first of all, what is a week before we jump in? I think that's
don't worry, Mandy. I'm here to help you explain that too as a Guyanese. So I'm ready for them.
I want to let you explain it, yeah.
Actually,
because so much of the film is like, you know, I'm not doing external research. I'm like coming from like my own experiences and my own family, and I'm like, oh, it's a wig. I don't know. It's like what I've done. You know, that's always what you do when there's when someone dies in your family before the funeral. Like I would go back to Guyana for like well in advance of the funeral for the wake and everything. So. Yeah, I'd never gotten that question before, but I loved it. But yeah, if you want to give them more,
I mean, that's basically it. You know, it's really a tradition that has come down like all the way from the Irish, where you know people, they would think they would be dead, but they'd lay there on a table. Most of the time, they'd be just passed out drunk, and then all of a sudden they would wake up. So that's why they would be called awake. Like they're just waiting for people to wake up.
I never.
But of course, we pulled all these little histories from all over the place. But yes, traditionally in Guyana, a wake is just basically where, you know, friends and family just comes to the house of the person that would have passed on, and just in celebration of that life, you know, Domino's, all the drinks that you can think about, and all of the food that you can think about as well, all up in there. Curry, cook up, it's definitely a must at a wake. So, you know, it's these kind of little details that are there that I loved that you captured as well. So I was highly appreciative of those moments. Well, you really telegraphed your memory onto the screen.
And it's something
I did have to like, sorry?
No, I was saying it's something that we do in Trinidad too, actually. Maybe across the Caribbean, but I don't know if it's called the same thing everywhere, but we say
definitely not the same thing. Yeah, right. Not called the same thing at all, but it is the exact same process.
Yeah, it was like finding the dominoes before the shoot day. I'm like, we gotta get, and people are like, why? I'm like, we have to, I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, it can't be a wake without the cards, the dominoes, the alcohol, the music. And in a way, it's like a celebration of the person's life, right? Yes, it's mourning, but it turns into togetherness and celebration. And you did capture that really well. So let's go back a little bit to the inspiration. Tell us what led you to make this film, what inspired '𝗪𝗔𝗬𝗔?
Sure, so I wanted to make a film as my thesis film in graduate school that involved my family. So actually being able to cast them in it. So they're all in the wake scene and stuff like that. But then I also wanted to make a coming of age film that spoke to my experience of growing up in the Caribbean American community in New Jersey and New York, but also kind of captured that point in a young girl's life where things go from being very simple to a little bit more complicated. And so I used different, memories and experiences, things that happened to me, to cousins, to like people in my family, and kind of pulled it all together to kind of have that coming of age arc, but also like infusing it with all of the Guyanese American, New York, New Jersey, Queens community.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. And yes, I would always start off with the casting question. I love that there's a good juxtaposition where 𝗔𝗪𝗘𝗦 was all filmed in Trinidad, and now you're in the diaspora in New York, Brooklyn area. What was it like looking for? Because I don't know, is everyone that's in the film is family? Is that what you're saying, that everyone is family?
No, just in the wake scene, I wanted to work with like all my family. So they're all the extras in that scene, our family.
Okay.
For the most part. But no, the casting was super important to me. I wanted to make sure that I could find either actors or non-actors that connected to the culture. And actually watching Maya's film reminded me of the process a lot, because looking for teenage girls is a very specific experience, because you can meet a 16-year-old that feels 13, or you can meet a 16-year-old that feels 21, depending on her experiences. And so like our films are both about teenagers, but my teenagers feel like much younger. And it's just an interesting thing about, growing up and being a girl that I love about pairing these two films. But the process of casting was essentially, I was open to non-actors and trained actors. So I did these group auditions, and I worked with this acting coach called 𝗬𝗪𝗔𝗬𝗦. She gave me some advice on running these group rehearsal sessions to kind of get a sense of how the actresses looked on screen and how they interacted with each other. So we recorded all of these group improv sessions that I ran. And then I looked at all the footage and paired different girls from the group auditions and had them improv together, read lines. And immediately the two actresses that play the leads in my film, they had like a connection. We did some dance exercises, and they just like had so much fun making up their dances and looked great. And so then once we got past the kind of improv phase, had them read sides, and just like knew immediately that they were the perfect fit for the film. And they both ended up being like actresses. One was at NYU at the time in the acting program there, and the other was 16, but she had done like a couple classes. So she had been acting for about 9 months, which is still significant, like at that age. And that's Victoria, who plays the lead. She's the 16-year-old. So that was, yeah, the casting. And it took a while to cast, but it was definitely worth it.
Oh, it was really great. Like the on-screen chemistry.
Yeah, there was great chemistry.
Yeah, and even just kind of how you style them, one of them looked more urban, one of them looked more like, she could have just come from Guyana with that kind of rootsy vibe, like it was very well done. And they played off of each other really well. And so I think, one of the other things that's really interesting, and Yafa touched on it earlier, is how it captures the microdynamics of diasporic relationships within a Caribbean family, right? So, and that applies to a lot of diasporas, not just in the Caribbean, but of course, you know about families that migrate from that kind of home country, but the connections remain, but time passes in between, right? And you really kind of did that in such an intimate way. So tell us about a few of those pivotal moments in the film where you wanted to really bring that out.
Yeah, there was so much of it in the script and that didn't end up making it into the film, these little moments. But what the first one that I feel like a lot of people miss is the conversation in the beginning of the film where they're talking about the iPhone and whether it's gonna work in Guyana or not. Like, because that was like always a thing in my family, like, you'd send your old phone back to your cousins, you see if it's, and then when smartphones came in, it became complicated about whether it's going to work or not. And that was just something I remember so clearly from childhood, that I wanted it to, like, yeah, just kind of be the starting point of, like, yes, they're best friends and cousins, but there is this like division, or this like tension with like being from just different cultures. And of course they overcome it in the end, but that's like always going to be a part of that relationship. And as you grow up, it gets more complicated and less like, that's my best friend. Then it's like, oh, that's my best friend, but like, I'm growing up, I'm changing, etc. So that was a big one. And then also one for me that's important is when they're in the dollar van going to the wake, and the main character, Vanessa, is awake and sort of thinking about the day, and Nikki is sleeping. And to me, that's just like, it's just like the impact of the day was just completely on Vanessa. And Nikki was like, oh, that was like a weird thing that happened, but like the fun will be when we get to the wake and we get to see everybody. But yeah, there are lots of those little moments. So glad you called.
And why was she sad at the end? Was it because
she's not
death, or she, that kind of left a bit of a question at the very end?
Yeah, I think it works differently for different people, but for me, I don't think she's necessarily sad. She's just like, she started out the day thinking it would be this perfect day to show her cousin, who she hadn't seen in a while, like all the cool adult things she can do in New York and how fun New York can be. And then she had this kind of disappointing moment with the boy she had a crush on. They didn't get to go to the city. They didn't get to do like all of the things that she was like so excited to show her cousin about, like growing up. And so for her, it's just like a moment of being like a little bit disappointed for the first time and thinking about all of those things. And like being at a funeral, I think is in like an extra layer of like thinking about life, and that life is not like, it just doesn't go on forever. You grow up, you die eventually. All of those things are part of coming of age and thoughts that we begin to have when we're getting a little bit older. So that's kind of like why I placed it there. So she's just thinking, she's just like contemplative rather than like genuinely sad, I would say.
Really trying to portray things that are like intricately buried into a culture, like some of the things that are like so specifically Guyanese, and then other things that like other cultures can look at and recognize, over time. How much did you have to, I guess, think about, or probably just have as happenstance of, am I really staying true to my roots as a Guyanese, having my heritage here, or how much is that is like really, okay, this is more for the story, for the sake of the story, so that everyone gets the story as well. Because we're talking about mourning, and the way that we mourn is so different across the diaspora. But again, you know, very, very specific detailed things in the film that you capture. And again, your camera too takes us for the ride. You know, we don't feel like we're observing, we feel like a part of everything that's happening between the two characters. So how much do you have to balance between staying true to the Guyanese roots and all of the details that you'd want to portray there because it's your memory that you're also putting on film, and how much of that you have to translate just to make the story go forward?
I think I probably didn't translate very much at all. I was very much just like, I'm gonna do it the way I want to do it. And some people won't know what a dollar van is. Some people won't know, you know, these very specific things. But ultimately, the way I thought about the film was that it could work on several layers, like, or several levels. Like, it's a coming of age story. There's kind of this very clear kind of coming of age arc, to me at least. Like, they go out, they're hopeful, they had a disappointment, it's nighttime, they're a little bit sad. You know, like, if you could follow that, then you could get something out of the film, even if you don't get all of the sort of layers of New York City and, you know, the Guyanese American culture and all of those things. But if you are a part of any of those communities or have experienced something similar, it adds something extra and it feels extra special. So that was my thought. Like, I'm not gonna make any compromises because, like, I want to be able to watch it and be like, that feels really nice and real to me.
Mm-hmm. And really quickly, the cinematography, everybody was commenting on that. Such a beautiful, beautiful film, and so intimate. And the girls were beautiful, so that helped, you know, but just the shots, there were some just really powerful shots where you were able to capture a lot of emotion just visually, right? Tell us a little bit about how you chose to do those close-ups and you know, what was your approach there?
Yeah, so my cinematographer, her name is Ricky Porter. She's really incredible. She's like an expert, like handheld camera operator too. So she like shot everything herself. But we, in the leading up to shooting the film, we watched a lot of films and brought a lot of references together that we felt like moved by. And so some of the cinematography comes from, just like films that have moved me, films by `𝗪𝗢𝗪𝗔𝗬𝗦, films by 𝗪𝗓𝗪𝗔𝗬𝗦, films by all sorts of people. So that research was a big part of the cinematography. But also we were at the end of grad school, so like Ricky could basically do everything. Like, in the beginning of learning to be a filmmaker, there's so many things you want to do, but you don't know how to do it. But we had reached that like perfect point between us where we had the references and we knew how to do it. And it just worked out really well.
Yeah, that's good. That's great. And both films deal with, you know, and this is now going on to a question for both of you. And while we're asking these, the audience, you could get your questions ready. Send the questions in your chat. But both films deal with young women and their budding identities, and you guys spoke about that, right? And this was very deliberate in, you know, Third Horizon's choice and our choice of these two films being paired together, that they were both coming of age stories and they focused on teenage girls from the Caribbean diaspora, right? What do you want young women who watch your films to take away from this experience? Start with Maya. I'll give Mandy a rest because
thank you.
I mean, and if so, I think, you know, for this short, it's really about like her sort of getting something passed on in a sisterly way from this older woman who's already in the dance world. And I think what she's passing on to her is a sense of confidence and a sort of encouragement to kind of go after what she wants. And the feature, it's about her sort of walking away with a newfound sense of autonomy. And sort of finding her voice and who she is in the world.
For me, I think it's about, I would like a young woman watching this to think about just the importance of female friendships. and like how formative they can be to your sense of self and your ability to kind of like bounce back from disappointments in life. You know, to be able to like lean on your sister or your cousin or your best friend. So I think for me, yeah, female friendships was the most important part.
And I do like that both of you chose that, the positive side of showing, you know, girls or female friendships, family, older women to younger women, that it didn't get into the cattiness, you know, that you tend to see where we're pit against each other, right, in a lot of stories. So kudos to that. You guys both did that really well.
Yeah, the power of the sisterhood. It's definitely a good thing.
You could be a sister.
It's not always perfect, but
Thank you.
You could be an honorary sister.
Honorary. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you. Thank you. I guess for there's a special place in my heart for female filmmakers. You know, there's a tenderness and there's a very intricate tenderness to texture and detail in film. How much of that, you know, how much of your own memory and the way that you remember things and making sure that it is replicated in your films, you know, Maya, for you in dance and costumes through the carnival and stuff like that, and then Mandy, for you in remembering Awake, like the environment of Awake and all that, like how much details and textures did you have to go pulling on in order to really replicate your films? I guess we could start with Mandy and then we could jump over to Maya from there.
Sure. I like what you said about female filmmakers often having a kind of tenderness to their lens and to the tone of their films. Not necessarily tone, but that's something I found when I was getting more into finding female filmmakers as I was in graduate school. And I connect to these films so much more because you can really, at least for the filmmakers I like get into the perspective of the character through that kind of very tender and like complex lens and like view of the character. So that was important to me in my film, just to always, for the most part, be coming from Vanessa, the main character's perspective with the camera. And that was like how I captured that tenderness. I don't know if that answers the question, but it was all about that character versus like the plot. It was just, we were with her and her feelings for most of the film.
Mm-hmm. Maya?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a kind of an intimacy about spaces that, you know, people who aren't in that world won't necessarily be able to access. So like bathroom spaces, dressing rooms, like, you know, like getting ready together. And if you're not in that world, you don't really know what that feels like. You know, and I being a performer myself, but also talking to a lot of performers about the kind of like sisterly intimacy that they experience, you know, in any sort of performance role that they're working in, even if it's in like the locker room, and talking about like how that feels, and sometimes talking about like how that feels inaccurately portrayed in other films. So I do think like personal memory of that like was really helpful in tapping into when painting those scenes.
Awesome. All right.
I totally agree about the locker room thing specifically. Like you can always tell. Or a dressing room, whatever, like right. A film made by a man versus a woman.
Yeah, for sure. And there are things that we wouldn't go into, but we know what they are. That, you know, after those things happen, like the bond, well, with guys too, right? Like the bond that you have, like you can't, you know, you've seen everything. Like you can't. So, all right, we have some great audience questions coming in, so I'll jump into those. Starting with, well, this one was actually kind of to both of you. Within the Trinidad and Guyanese culture, is there a lot of encouragement and empowerment between women, especially women who want to pursue the creative landscape or industries? That's a good one. Who wants to go first?
I honestly can't speak for the whole culture at all, but my parents have always been supportive. And like everyone in my family loves movies and art and stuff. So
you're very lucky in that respect. That's very good. Yeah, it is like, Maya, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky question. I don't want to make any sort of generalizations about it, but I think for my own personal experiences, like when I returned to Trinidad from film school, I became very close to another woman filmmaker called 𝗪𝗪𝗘𝗣𝗕. And I think, like that kind of exchange of talking to her a lot. She was at UWI at the time, and she like worked on one of my first short films, but like just now she's in graduate school at Florida. So just kind of like that exchange of us like, being women and being minorities like in this space, and making sure that, we're there for each other and we're building each other up, especially in like a male dominated space, is really important. I don't know if I could kind of speak for the whole island or like for the whole Caribbean, but I think personally I've made some really strong connections with women directors in Trinidad, and it does feel like a kind of encouraging, like supportive space, because I think we all realize that there's just no use in competing with each other.
Yeah.
Like we're all kind of like making films from this marginalized space, and it's like the access is a lot less, and so like we realize like there really is just no value in like
No point
competing or trying to bring each other down. Yeah,
exactly. That's a little barrel to be crabs in, right? Like, doesn't make sense. And somebody else asked, this is for Mandy, you mentioned Claire Dennis's work being an inspiration. What films did you and your DP watch? Was it Chocolat? Because I can definitely see the connection there.
that's funny. I still haven't seen that one. But it was, she has this film called I Can't Sleep, which was the main inspiration for some of the party scenes, which is, the film is like about like a serial killer or something, but like that's like the plot. But there are so many of these Caribbean family moments in the diaspora, these really tender family moments that you would never expect from a film with the overall plot or theme. And then of course 35 Shots of Rum, which is just a beautiful dance scene, and a beautiful like father-daughter relationship in that film that's just shot so wonderfully.
Okay, and I'll take one more, guys. They're pouring in, so we'll have to just take one more. For Maya, where was the film shot? Where exactly in Trinidad, I'm guessing, was the film?
I mean, we shot mostly in Port of Spain.
Okay.
Yeah, we shot for the short, we shot at the final scenes, we shot at the Black Box, which is this art space that Three Canal runs. For the opening scene, we shot at this bar that's been closed down for the last 10 years called Niceness. But luckily, the owner of that bar, Clyde, has preserved all the murals and the curtains and the colors. And so even though it's abandoned, we were sort of able to kind of like push things aside and shoot in that space. And that's actually on the, like in the downtown Port of Spain, like on the corner of Nelson Street. And so yeah, so mostly in Port of Spain. And for the feature, like the feature kind of goes to different places. Like we end up at the beach on the North Coast as well, in the feature length film.
And for those who don't know what Port of Spain is, that's the capital of Trinidad. That's the biggest city in Trinidad and Tobago. So, and it's also where the epicenter of Carnival happens. It's kind of the big culmination. Carnival happens across the country, but it's kind of where the biggest events and stuff take place. So just for context for the non-Trinis and non-Caribbean people. All right, so to wrap us up, each of you tell us what's next for you. Everybody's seen these films, love the films, and are really curious to know what projects should we be looking out for, or what's out in the world that you like, people to know about. Mandy, you want to go first?
Sure. So I'm editing a short now that I shot kind of a while ago about like a 22-year-old Guyanese American girl whose parents, when she graduates college, they sell their house and move back to Guyana. And so she's kind of dealing with that like separation from her parents for the first time. So that short hopefully I'll be submitting that to festivals later in the year. And then I'm just writing. I'm hoping to kind of get into TV and bring kind of like the Caribbean culture there. So writing some pilots now. So we'll see what happens with those.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, same. I'm doing a lot of writing. I have one pilot that I wrote with the same writer of 𝗕𝗙𝗪𝗔𝗥𝗕𝗙𝗡. It's about 𝗪𝗟𝗪𝗔𝗬𝗦. And then I have another pilot that I'm writing and 2 feature-length films that I'm sort of polishing. So I've really only been writing right now, and then doing kind of like freelance gigs in between.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited you're doing something on 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗔𝗬𝗦. That's so good. Okay, we have to talk about that offline. I'm like really excited to hear that. But Maya, tell people about the feature where they could see it, because it's out in theaters and you're still doing some festivals as well, right?
Yeah, it's on demand. You could see it on Tubi for free. The only thing with Tubi is that there are ads that play in between. But I would suggest just watching it on Tubi if you can. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. All right. Well, I'm going to cue it to Yaphet to tell us a little bit about the upcoming Third Horizon Film Festival. And then we're gonna close and we'll kind of cue what we're gonna have for next week for you guys to tune into. So Yaphet, tell us a little bit about Third Horizon for those who'd like to check it out.
Yeah, Third Horizon Film Festival, back at you again. So the festival starts June 23rd through 26th. We have early bird tickets available now. So if you went to thirdhorizonfilmfestival.com, you can get your tickets there, your early bird tickets. We have passes available as well. Like I mentioned, we're both in person and hybrid. So, just jump onto the website and check us out. Please follow us as well, and you can stay up to date with everything that's happening with the festival. We're really excited. I don't want to release because, some of these things are like so top secret for no reason sometimes, but
Right.
we want to maintain the suspense. But it's a really, really great curation this year. I feel like every year we just keep getting better with our curations. So we have some artists that are in focus. We're also doing a retrospective from a very, very good filmmaker. I know that's like so cliche and mundane, but just stay tuned to us, through our social media and our website. Early bird tickets are out there. Check us out, and hope to see you in sunny Miami in June.
Yes, and I could vouch for that. Third Horizon is an experience. It's not just film, it's food, it's art, well, I love the food trucks. So I'll say food again. Food trucks.
Right. It's just community.
Yeah, it's partying, it's karaoke, it's, it's just everything about Caribbean culture. You're just immersing yourself and meeting a lot of people, and it feels like family once the festival is over. So I would definitely second that. And so I'll let Mandy and Maya leave some parting words for the audience, but most importantly, let everybody know where they could find you and follow your work.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for tuning in today. You can see what I'm up to on my website, which is just mandymarcus.com. And then my Instagram is lil_stressful. You can follow me there.
I love that handle, by the way, and I saw it. It was so funny.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, not as creative, at Cozier. And then you could follow the film's Instagram, where we post a lot of updates. It's called @𝗕𝗙𝗪𝗔𝗬𝗦, the film.
Awesome. All right, well, guys, this was really great. Thank you, Maya. Thank you, Mandy. These were awesome films. Thank you, Yaphet, for being such a great co-host. Next Short Film Saturdays is May 14th with Klish Gittens from Barbados. So we're actually back in the Caribbean. We usually don't do regions back to back. So y'all are gonna get some more Caribbean action. Klish Gittens from Barbados and Rebecca Williams from Jamaica. Those are both really awesome films. So tune in, same time, same place, YouTube Live, and like and subscribe this channel. Thank you everyone so much. You've been an awesome audience. Thank you.